Um, so I was just, um, I think I just need to come back to the CSV file a little bit, and it looks like there's a couple of things that were not considered in parsing the CSV file. So when you think about it, if it's a deposit, then we have 4 columns. Withdrawal, we still have 4 columns. And in the dispute and chargeback and resolve, the way I understood the CSV file to be built is that you would have 3 columns, which is not normal to how CSV files are set up in the first place. You would expect to see an empty column at the very end. It's not going to be a mismatch in the number of columns. So what I want to do is just kind of make sure that this code supports both mismatch in the columns and at the same time um, having 4 columns where the amount is empty. So we could try to see if we can take a look at the main loop where we're looking at all the processing, we're looking at all the transactions to be processed. So here's the record, and we are trying to build a transaction from the record. So all of our logic would be inside of this method, and it's looking like we're trying to parse that transaction. So because I added commas over here and the amount is expected to exist, I'm fairly certain that this unwrapped is going to cause an error. We can try that out. Just by running it, we can see that it's not able to parse that float because it's trying to unwrap an empty value. So what we may choose to do is, instead of using sum and unwrapping it, we may choose to just return whatever value. Oh wait, 1 second. Sorry about that. I have to put my phone on silent. Cool. So this is basically a result, and we want to be able to convert it to an option. So let's do that. I believe or else are the 2 methods that we may have to use, like unwrap or, which might be a good idea. Unwrap or a default is none. Would that be acceptable? I'm just trying to look at this. Oh, I see. Expected option. That's weird. I don't see how. Right. So let's just check on the internet real quick. What's the best way to result to option in Rust. How do we go from a result to an option? And looks like someone was already. Oh, they're actually thinking about converting an option into a result, but we want the opposite. So let's see. We could try to match this. little sip of water. All right, let's try adding a small function here. Parse amount. Okay, what does it return? This is going to return an option of F64, and it's going to it's going to take in what exactly? String. So amount string. Okay. So we can go ahead and parse amount. That's another string. Shoot. Do I have it? Nope, I don't have it. Okay. Why don't I make this just a method over here? Then I'll figure out what's the best way to kind of bring it into here, into the implementation. But okay. Right. Okay. Well, that is a result. So that's exactly what it had before. So we're able to parse the amount. Then what we may choose to do is we want to return match this. If this is so we have to see match return result in Rust. So I believe that would be okay. Or I think the cool thing is I can fill out the arms as well. So we want the value, right? So this is the amount. We can return the amount, some amount. If that is empty, then you can say none. I believe that will be a safe way to convert result into an option. So let's give it a shot. Let's see if that parses. Okay, so it looks like it's parsing now. So we're just basically making the code a little bit more robust in the sense that if your CSV comes in with 3 columns, then you can parse it. If your CSV comes in with 4 columns, like this one, you still know how to parse it into a legitimate transaction. I do also think we may need a few more rules to check for validity. So for example, we may want to make sure that if it's a deposit, it does have an amount. If it doesn't have an amount, then we want to basically skip it. Thinking something like that would be good. So on my screen, I'm just reading a little bit on the instructions there, so just give me a second, it's going to be quiet. The other thing I wanted to make sure is make sure this transaction type, if it is deposit or withdrawal, we expect the amount to exist. Otherwise, we won't be able to process this. So yeah, so we should try to do that as well. Transaction type. Okay. So I might add another property on the transaction called isValid. Just to be able to determine if the incoming transaction is valid. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we will do here is, so we have this transaction. Actually, wait, no, we don't need this flag. We can get rid of this flag and we can implement it as a method instead, directly on the transaction. Where is it? Oh, I see, it's a transaction type. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we can actually do this. Fn is valid, and then it return a boolean if it's valid. So let's write a test first for that. Should return invalid if transaction, if deposit has no amount. So this should, yeah, let's import that, and then it's going to say construct the fields. Sorry about that, I had to go get some tea. Okay, so we have these transaction types, right? So let's say transaction type is deposit. Client can be anything, so what we will do is 100, transaction ID is 100, the amount is none, and disputed is false. So what we expect to see is assert tx dot is valid to be false. So if we were to run the test, we expect this test to fail because obviously this is return true. I'll just make it so that it's always returning true as valid, but that's going to fail our test anyway. One test failed, and that is, yep, exactly the test that we care about. So self dot transaction type. It's either a deposit or a withdrawal, then we have to make sure that right, if it's either a withdrawal or a deposit, and self dot amount is none, then we return false, because you must have a right. I believe we need the we can't equate it this way. We need matches. And then do the same thing with this. Withdrawal. Okay. It wants us to remove parentheses. That's gone. Okay. It wants to get rid of that parentheses too. I don't. Not a huge. I don't think that's. We do need that parentheses. Right. So this will pass the test. So I missed another test where we were checking for deposits, so we need to also check for the withdrawals. Withdrawal. And nothing is going to change here. It's still going to pass this test. Alright, so yeah, I'm just gonna go off camera for a while. I think it's just a matter of testing different variations of the CSV. I might just throw in a couple of error type CSVs. Unknown transaction type. Well, if you have an unknown transaction type, it's not going to parse anyway, because it's going to throw transaction. Well, it's going to panic anyway, so I don't see how that would be a valid way to test it. But if you do have a chargeback, maybe we can have another test here. If well, the point is we have added this valid flag, but we need to do something with it. So we could just say if transaction is valid, then process this transaction. So and then we can run this transactions as well, so we can double check that it is running all the valid transactions. We can add a few more. We can go crazy with all these tests. So I can just go ahead and add another test here. Okay. Return invalid if well, actually we don't really. So if it's a disputed transaction and has an amount, I don't think they really care about the amount associated with that disputed transaction, so I'm just going to ignore that. That should not be preventing the transaction from processing, so I'm not going to add that additional logic in there. So it's really just making sure that we have an amount if it's a deposit or a withdrawal. Yeah, I mean we can add more tests to make sure that it should return a valid Instead of invalid, it should return valid, right? If the amount exists, so sum 100 or 1005. So run the test again. Yes. Compiler needs to know how to compile it. Okay, so yeah, we just basically add another test to see that it's valid. So I'm gonna double check a couple more things in the CSV and basically try to wrap it up. Thank you.